Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and I want to talk about a very unique individual who wrote a very unique book. Or at least he talked a good line to an individual who took his words down and took them hopefully as law. Her name was May Dixon Thacker, and the individual was a fellow by the name of Gaston Means. Now, you probably have no idea who Gaston Means was. But I'll have to tell you something. Here's the book. It was entitled The Strange Death of President Harding. And it was a sensation because Gaston Means went through a whole amazing history of all the terrible things that were going on in the Harding White House. And how, amazingly, Mrs. Harding eventually finishes off her husband. Only one little problem with this whole story. None of it was true. You see, Gaston Means said he was a member of the special investigative force that was working in the White House, and that he was a special confidant of Mrs. Harding, and that he had many rows and arguments with President Harding. Well, Gaston Means was never in the White House. And Thacker, who he told the story to, he said, I have all kinds of files. In fact, I'll show you something. In this book, it shows something very interesting. You have to look at it rather carefully, and I don't know if I can show this to you well. But there is Gaston Means next to some of the very important files that he had pertaining to this old book. Let me read it to you, what it says. It says here, ex-Department of Justice investigator, star witness for the United States government in the Harry M. Daugherty, Teapot Dome, and other sensational investigations, as he appeared in the committee room in the United States Chambers with some of his diaries. Ah, yes, those diaries. It's an interesting thing. He made up the story. In fact, it's fascinating when you study Gaston Means and the strange death of President Harding, this absolute malarkey, which he took a lot of the information that had been written by Nan Britton, who indeed was involved with President Harding. She was his mistress. Actually had a child with President Harding. Interesting story right there. But he just copied a good deal of the stuff that she wrote and just threw it right into his book, into his diaries. Now, what's even more outrageous about Gaston Means, he used to go home with his wife and they would think up new and exciting stories to tell and write down in his diaries as though they were fact. Now, the unfortunate thing about Gaston Means, he eventually ended up in prison because he did so many different things that were really abhorrent. But this is the thing that really has screwed up history, because this book, to this day, a lot of it is looked upon as fact. Now, we all know that Gaston Means was a fraud. But a lot of the stories and innuendo he created in this book are still looked upon with some degree of relevance. You know, a lot of the stuff that Mrs. Harding did, a lot of the stuff that Harding did, and of course the whole idea of Mrs. Harding killing her husband. That still is being said by certain circles. Well, Harding had a severe heart condition, and he was being treated by two different doctors. One was homeopathic and one was following traditional medicine. And the two medications that were being given to the president were dangerous. And he died of a massive heart attack. So Gaston Means is responsible for a lot of unfortunate things in our history. But this is the kingpin of kingpins when it comes to absolute bullshit. When history is taken and history is basically perverted, changed, adulterated, and all for pretty good profit. Because this went through several different editions until about, let's see, Mrs. Thackeray said something here. In 1931, she said the book was a sham. But this information was given out in the late 1920s. And unfortunately, the pot was filled with the spoiled milk. And it'll probably take a long, long time to get rid of all of what Gaston Means did to our history. Thank you.